Hi, Miss Noise's class.
Hi.
Hey.
We had a great time with you guys at the river, and we're about 300 miles further down the river right now. But we've been having so much fun reading all your letters and everything that you've been learning, so we thought it was about time that we answered all of your questions. So I'm going to start first, and Angela asked us, how many schools have we stopped at? Well, we stopped at Trenton, we stopped at one in Bismarck, we stopped at one in Pierre, and at Pilkin Pier too. So we've done 4 schools and we're just heading to our 5th now. Her second question was, what is everyone's favourite colour and sport? My favourite colour is blue, which you might be able to tell. And my favourite sport is rugby, which is a sport that we play in Wales a lot. What about you guys?
Blue and canoeing.
Purple and basketball.
Green and biking.
Okay, I'll answer the next questions from Keenan. And his first question is, how do you feel about the trip? We feel really good. We just got off the reservoirs and now we're on the river for the rest of the trip with current. So I would say we all feel really good about it. Good question, Keenan. Second question, are you going to feel happy to finish the trip? I'd say we're all going to feel really excited to finish the trip. Yeah.
Nice.
All right, Sarah asks, who are the 2 people who left the trip early? So one was my little brother Tommy, and the other was a good friend of ours named Sarah. So they had to go back to college and get back to business. And Sarah was also wondering, this is a great question, when is Nia's birthday? Nia's birthday was on September 23rd, and we had a celebration. It was a little bit of a snotty day, rain, bad weather, but we baked her a cake on a fire, we had a little feast, we had a good time. Thanks, Sarah.
All right, and I have 2 great questions from Olivia. The first question is, how are you not scared at night? And that's a good question. Luckily, the 4 of us, we look out for each other, and at night we have lights, so it's actually not that scary. And our second question is, what is our favorite kind of food? And that is, I don't have to think for 1 second about that. My favorite food is pizza.
I like enchiladas.
Not pizza?
Sweet potatoes.
Oh, I like lasagna. So Lily wanted to know, how many days have we been on the river? So today will be our 86th day on the river. That's nearly 3 whole months. And she also wanted to know, how many miles do we paddle in 1 day? Right now we're paddling about 30 miles a day, but it's varied from 12 miles a day back up on Cutbank Creek when the river was really small to 45 was our longest day.
Good questions.
Okay, me?
Yep.
So I got a couple questions here from Diana. Her first is, how do you hold yourselves together? And I like to answer that by just saying, supporting one another, you know? Just somebody's feeling down and out, maybe helping them carry their bag to camp, or helping them cut up vegetables for dinner that night, or telling them just take 5 and go have some time to yourself. Yeah, something like that. That's how we hold ourselves together. Second question from Diana. Is it worth paddling all that way? I would say, oh yeah. It's just super fun. We get to see so much cool stuff out here. At least a dozen bald eagles a day, for example, and it's totally worth it.
All right, Nathan is wondering, how did you guys meet? That's a good question. So it's a little bit complicated. Sarah, myself, and Matt, we all went to the same college, which is where we met. And then Sarah and Nia worked together on a job in Montana. And so Sarah introduced Nia to Matt and myself. And then Nathan was also wondering, what gave you the idea to do this? So this idea was actually Sarah's, and I'm going to turn that over to her.
Oh. So I had this idea because I've biked across the country and I've walked across the country, but I really wanted to see the country from water. You know, you don't need a highway. The route is already laid out for you, and I wanted to see this river, the Missouri River, because I grew up right along the Missouri River just like you guys do. And it felt like a great way to see the country and explore. How come you guys wanted to go on this trip?
I just love adventure, being outside, seeing animals. I get to meet all these cool students along the way. Just all around good time.
For my paddling resume, this has got to go on it. Paddling the 4th largest river in the world. Done.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool adventure, and it means I get to see 13 more states in the US.
13, nice. All right, the next two questions are from Liz. Have you ever tipped over when you were boating? Whew. On this trip, we have not tipped over. We've been really careful because the water's pretty cold. But I know on other trips we've been on, we have tipped over. But we wear our life jackets and it's not too big of a deal. The other question was, what kind of animals have you seen? Oh, the reason I'm on this trip is to see animals, and we have seen so many awesome animals. Let's see, maybe we could each tell our favorite animal we've seen so far on this trip. Just the other day, I was looking under some logs, and I was just like this far away on accident from a tiny, tiny rattlesnake. It was like this big coiled up, and that was my favorite animal I've seen on this trip.
Just as we were sitting down at this spot to answer your guys' questions, a merlin, which is a small falcon, just buzzed right over our heads, flying south for the winter. That was pretty awesome.
2 days in a row, we got to see a coyote up on the hill hunting for gophers or little prairie dogs. That was pretty cool to see on the trip.
Ooh, I think right now in the fall, with all the migrations happening, my favorite thing that I've seen so far is a flock of about 100 pelicans flying south all together. That was pretty cool. Right, so I've got the next set of questions from Kaylin, and she says, how does the canoe hold so much without sinking? That's a good question, because it does look like they're really, really full, doesn't it? But these canoes are actually still sitting really high in the water, even though we put so much stuff in them. They can hold, what is it, Matt? How many pounds?
1,600 pounds.
1,600 pounds. So we actually haven't got anywhere near enough stuff in there to make them go under. And her next question was, how are we able to do something this epic? Well, thanks, Kaylin, for the compliment, but really, it's all about having an idea and then setting some goals so you can get forward and make that idea a reality. So, as Sarah said, she had this idea. We all wanted to come along. We thought it was cool, so we worked for both for money, and we worked towards achieving the goal, finding canoes and finding all the gear we need and planning. So that's really, really how you can do something this epic.
Okay, and I've got some questions from Hattie Larson. She asks, will the crew paddle back upstream when they're done? And I will say no. We definitely won't. The current is with us, and by the time we finish, it'll be December, Christmas time. It'll be really cold, and I think we'll all be ready to move on to do something different. So downstream is how we like going.
Maybe she'll go upstream one day.
That could be Hattie's adventure, maybe.
Hattie could go upstream. We've heard of people doing this upstream, but it's just enough work for us to go downstream. Next question, what card games do you play? Well, it's funny you ask, because just last night I beat Aaron in a game of cribbage.
Oh, easy now.
So we play cribbage. We'll play 4-person cribbage, 2-person cribbage. We play 7 up, 7 down. That's kind of like spades. And another game called Killer. Lots of games. Rummy sometimes. Lots of different card games. That's about it.
Nice. Ashley is wondering how are we going to get back when we reach the end. And so it's going to be a little bit different for each of us. I think I'm going to probably have to fly in a plane. And I don't know, I'll let each person answer for themselves.
I have no idea. We'll figure that out later.
I think I'll have to fly in a plane as well, because I have to cross the Atlantic Ocean.
I'm going to ride a bike to my parents' house in southern Arizona and then maybe take a train home.
Nice. And then Ashley's second question is perfect, which is how are you going to stay warm in the winter? And today is actually one of our first kind of chilly days. So you see we all have our sweaters and beanies and jackets on. And as it gets colder, we're going to be moving south. So hopefully it won't get as cold down in New Orleans as it does up in Pierre. But we're just going to need to get more clothes, warmer jackets, warmer hats. We're going to have to wear gloves. We're just going to have all the gear. And so we're going to pick that up as we need it when we move down the river. Thanks, Ashley.
All right, Gabe had a couple questions about money. He asked, how much money did we bring? And we actually didn't bring that much money, but we do have some cards that we can use that take money out of our bank accounts, because we don't want to accidentally lose a bunch of money if a wave comes over our boat. And he also asked, does one person buy everything, or do we split the cost of everything? And we split the cost. That way we're all contributing. Good questions.
Okay, Ellie has 2 questions as well, and she said, when do we decide to canoe the country? I think actually Sarah first had this idea 2 years ago. How long ago was it?
Yeah, when I was really young, I wanted to do this trip, but I really started planning 2 years ago.
Yeah, so from 2 years ago up until now. And were there any big animals close to your camp? Well, trying to think back to up in Montana, and we at times saw bear footprints. They were pretty big.
That big, yeah.
We've seen coyote footprints. We've seen lots of deer footprints. We've seen a lot of animals around camp by their tracks. So yeah, we've had a few animals close to our camp. And actually, right up in the mountains in Montana, we had a mountain goat who was really close to our camp.
Pretty cute.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, I've got questions from Cadence. What would you do if there was a tornado? Well, I'll tell you what I would do. I'd get off the water, out of the canoe, and hunker down, probably away from a tree so no branches fell on me. Maybe in a ditch, get low. Same thing you guys would do if you were outside of your school. Next question, what would you do if someone stole all of your stuff? That's a really good question. We would probably try to borrow canoes and try to go to a thrift store or borrow sleeping bags, do something super cheap, and start the trip over again from where they stole all our stuff. And we'd probably cry a little bit too. That's about it.
These next couple questions are coming from someone in secrecy. This one's anonymous, no name here. Question number one is, how do you canoe? So canoeing is something actually that most of us had to learn on this trip. It is a pretty straightforward thing, but the things that are most important for us to learn were how to deal with the current and the rapids and how to avoid rocks. And so luckily Matt's been teaching us how to steer that canoe, how to pick really safe routes through all this stuff. But it's something that you just kind of have to get out there and learn. You know, you have to be smart about your safety, bring your PFDs, wear your PFDs, and you just have to practice it. And every day we're out there, we're getting stronger and getting better at canoeing. And second question is, how do you guys catch animals? So that question is a really important one because we've had a lot of pictures of animals, and you might have seen Sarah and Nia catching animals. But before you ever try to catch any animals or do anything with a wild animal, it's really important to remember that wild animals are dangerous. And so it's important to learn about what these animals are and what they're capable of and know what you're getting into. So something like a toad or a frog is something that is a little bit safer to catch than maybe a grizzly bear. So just in that same way, a bull snake is a little easier to catch than a rattlesnake. But if you don't know what a bull snake looks like, and you can't quite remember what a rattlesnake looks like, it's better not to catch any snakes.
And a lot of the pictures that they've seen of our presentation, we didn't catch them at all.
That's right. So for me, I think the best thing is just to avoid wild animals. Keep your distance. Check them out with, your camera and your binoculars if you can. Nice question, Anonymous.
All right. And from Bryant, we have a couple questions. Do you travel from the Missouri to the Mississippi? And that is exactly right. You know our route perfectly. We are on the Missouri River. We have about 800 more miles until we get to the Mississippi. And then we're going to follow the Mississippi River all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. And the second question was, where do you all live? Well, right now we all live on the Missouri River. But when we're not on this trip, we live in different places. I live in Kansas City.
I live in California, Sacramento.
I live in Nevada City, California.
And I live in Wales, in the UK.
Nice.
Okay, I've got 2 more questions from Joshua. What will you do when you guys are done with the river at the Gulf of Mexico? Well, we'll pack up all our stuff and we'll head back. I know Aaron has to go back to work. I've got to go back and start school again in Wales. And then Sarah, what do you think you'll do?
The next adventure someone thinks up for me.
And Matt, what about you?
Yeah, same. I'll figure it out. I'm not sure.
Okay. Oh, that's all his questions.
Okay, I got a couple questions from Morgan. What is your favorite animal you've seen on the trip? We covered that one.
Yep, good question.
Good question. Next question. Why did you start the On the River trip?
We kind of covered
We
that
covered
one
that
too.
one as well.
Nice.
So,
Nice. All right.
Good job, Morgan.
We're going to jump right over to Brady. So, Brady's first question is, are we ever going to see you again? That's a good question. I hope so, because I had a really fun time meeting all you and sharing our trip and hearing about you guys and learning about you guys. So, I hope we do get to see you again, but I'm not sure.
We might, we might, or I know what you're saying, sorry.
We maybe will, when you guys give us your wonderful ideas for your trips, we might be asking to come along on your adventures with you. So, keep it in mind. We might see you again.
I was going to say we might read about him in the paper, see your face in the paper.
That's true. We might just have to read about your amazing stuff in the paper. And second question from Brady is, how old are you guys? I'm going to give you a second to formulate a guess. Formulate your guesses, get them in your head, and I'm going to run down the line here. Got those guesses? Here we go. Nia just turned 27, Matt's 31, I'm 33, and Sarah's 30. Good questions, Brady.
All right, Jose had a couple questions. Where do we get our canoes? We actually did some fundraisers and we raised money ourselves by working, and we bought our canoes new. And do you fish? Matt, I'll turn that question over to you.
Oh, we fish all the time. I've actually had to stop fishing because I catch too many fish. That's the truth. So, yep.
All right, thanks.
Braden had all his questions answered. Braden's had all his questions answered by already.
All right.
So,
All right.
pass
Okay.
on.
So we got a movie star here, starring one of our latest movies about the food cycle. Jacob Mayer. His question is, I want to know when you get done. And we have a plan, but we're not really sure. But we're thinking before Christmas, after Thanksgiving, somewhere in that 2-3 week window. Next question from Jacob is, I also want to know when you started. Good question. So we started near the 1st of July, closer to the 4th of July, but we all met up right at the end of June. So it'll be about 6 months when we're all said and done.
Nice. Okay, so Mason is wondering, how will we get through the snow if we don't make it far enough south in time? And so if we hit a snowstorm, chances are we are going to be looking for a place to stay. We're going to be off the river. We're going to be trying to stay warm, hopefully next to a nice fire or maybe next to a heater. And then hopefully that storm will pass and give us time to get south. But we're really working on trying to get our way south before we hit any snow, but it's something we definitely have to be prepared for. Second question is, do we stop in every little/big town? And the question is, as much as we would like to, we actually have to make it south before that snow hits. So like yesterday we stopped in Yankton. Maybe some of you guys have been there. We went and had some lunch there. But usually we pass towns and we'll stop maybe every 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 days and get food that'll last us for a nice big long stretch river, so we can just stay out here in the woods on the river and keep paddling south. Good questions, Mason.
All right, and I think that is all of our questions. Thank you guys so much for writing to us and coming to the river and visiting with us. We had a ton of fun, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
And just like Brady was wondering, I hope we do see you guys again someday. You never know.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks so much. See ya.
Bye.